Okay, good morning, everyone. We ready to go? Yes. Where's that excitement and enthusiasm? We got to wake up. This is how we're setting the pattern for our week. How do you want your week to be? Exactly. So the week is not going to be anything that you aren't. So we've got to be happy, excited, joyous, enthusiastic, loving, kind, all those great things. And then guess what will happen for the week? We're going to have the same thing. It's got to be that way. If we're exuding love and kindness and we're exuding goodness into the world, then that's with us everywhere we go. I'll ask you a quick question. Yes. Where do you go you don't take your soul with you? Where do you go that you don't take your soul with you? Our soul goes with us everywhere. So the whole beauty and the value of what we're learning here, called Kabbalah, is how to operate. That's why we call it technology of the soul. So just like my cell phone, I guarantee you my cell phone has about 1,000 times more capability than I know how to use. Right? Yeah, I see the heads going like this. Exactly. But does that mean then, when I take my cell phone out and I can do the few things I can do with it, does that mean that all the potential, that's it? No, there's plenty more potential. But I have to learn the technology of how to make it work. So in the same way, everywhere we go, our soul contains all the resources, all the capability to bring peace and harmony to our lives 100% and to the world 100%. The only thing that we need to do, learn the technology. And that's what we're doing here on Sunday. That's the mission of the Kabbalah Center in general for almost the last 100 years, and the great master Kabbalists for thousands of years since the beginning of time. So you and I are the great beneficiaries of that lineage of people that were willing to make the effort to bring it to you and I. And I hope, because we're getting that spiritual awakening, that we're willing to turn around and do the same thing. Spread this wisdom, spread the tools, spread the understanding to other people. Because as fast as we can do that, is as fast as we can see the end of all pain, suffering, and death. Sounds pretty good, no? Yeah, great. I see the opponent already got some. All right? That opponent in our head telling us, no, it'll never happen. Well, look what just happened in North Korea. How many years ago did we believe that would never take place? How many of you remember before cell phones? Aha. How many of you would never believe cell phones would exist? Exactly. But here they are. Amazing things are taking place. If that can happen physically, how much more spiritually? So before we go on with our affirmation for today, how many of you are new to Spiritual Sunday? Anybody new for the first time? Great, marvelous. It's great to have you. And just by the way then, so you'll know who I am, in case I forget, my name is Chaim Solomon. I'm one of the teachers here in the center. So if I can ask us, we'll say it together. The point is to constantly remind ourselves who and what we are, the capability we have, and by doing that, flush out all the falsehoods and the untruths that we've been told or we've accepted about ourselves and about people around us. So if you'll say with me together, consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And of course, as we said, today's the day we set the pattern. So let's stand up and start the pattern of love and kindness to the people around us. Okay, a few people every week I like to share just to acknowledge the people who are watching. We have Cece from Ventura, California, Wendy from Bakersfield. We have Sheila from New Jersey, Marikor from the Philippines, Radim, he just wrote me a few questions even from the Czech Republic. I mean, imagine that. We have Anna from Panama City. We have Andrew from Hong Kong. We have Marikor from the Philippines. We have Patricia from Ohio, Richard from Maine, and Jan from Quebec. So we're getting out there because of the energy that we put in here. That's up to you. So it's what we generate here and what we share here is what goes out into the world. Remember, like will attract like, and we're going to speak about that a little bit this morning. All right? But the more we put out the light into the world, then the more the light will come back to us. It really is just that simple. So why are we learning Kabbalah if it's simple? Because, like we have our affirmation, we've so made things complex And we are so influenced to make it complex that we have to come here to learn the original simplicity that we know in our heart and soul. I mean, okay, let's go on. Otherwise, I'm going to go way off to the side here. How many of you love to be fearful? Exactly. Fear is not a very good thing, right? We really don't want to be fearful. It scares us. It brings anxiety, brings up the blood pressure, all kinds of not good things. And yet, they tell us we should have fear of God. We should fear God. So if we grow up thinking fear is not a good thing because it scares us, I don't know, people frighten us or whatever, then maybe we should be frightened of God. That's what they're telling us. Fear of God, or just to fear God. And why? And then they have validation. You read in the Bible, God punished this one, and if you don't do what God says, then you'll be punished, and it goes on and on and on. The wrath of God, the jealousy of God, the punishment of God, listen to God, etc. So of course we should have fear of God. It just makes sense, doesn't it? If you read it that way. But then the Bible also says you have to love God. So one of the nice things that my teachers always talk about, the Rav and Karen Berg, if it says we're supposed to love God with all our heart, soul, and might, when you love somebody, there's some connection, isn't there? You see them, you know them. So one is, how can we be commanded to love God? That's one thing. If it's a commandment, then it's not really love, right? Does somebody walk up to you and say, you know what, I demand that you love me? Yeah, that relationship no longer exists, right? Exactly. So one, how can we be commanded to love God? But the other thing is, how can we love something that we're not familiar with? If we're supposed to fear God, then we want to keep our distance. Isn't that? Anyone have a fear of dogs? Right? Fear of snakes? Fear of spiders? Fear of whatever bugs, things like that? Yeah, so if you have a fear of it, how close do you want to be? Yeah, you don't want to be. So if we're taught to fear God, then we're automatically pushing away God. We automatically want to push it away. We don't want to be close. And yet now it says we should love God. So our good fortune is we're here in the Kabbalah Center. And we teach from what's known as the wisdom of the Zohar. Literally the blueprint of creation itself. And what does it tell us about the Bible? It doesn't say don't believe the Bible. What it tells us is you cannot believe the Bible only on its literal level. Because like this, how can you fear God and love God? There's too many contradictions if we look at it just on the literal level. So if it's contradictory, imagine you get to this corner of a street, it's one of those T sections, and it says you have to turn right and left. So now what are you going to do? Yeah, go straight in the wall. All right, that's what else is there. But I mean, that's it. How can you do two contradictory things? You can't. So if the Bible is telling us what looks like contradictory things, just as a quick example, because it's very powerful and obvious, isn't one of the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill? But then you have, shortly after the giving of the 10 Commandments, you have God telling Moses to go kill people. So which is it, kill or not? And why do you think then there's so much confusion in the world today? Right? We got to protect ourselves, so maybe, heaven forbid, that means killing people. Or some people say, let's just prevent bad stuff from happening to us, so we'll just go kill people ahead of time. And then you say, look, the Bible says. So that's why we don't believe that the Bible is only written on a literal level. But we have to dig deeper. And that's what Kabbalah is offering us. The ways and means to understand the blueprint of the universe, and therefore to make everything congruent. How to take out the contradictions, whether it's things in the Bible or in our own lives. How many of you have ever questioned, how come if you're such a good person, bad things happen? Exactly. So again, it's contradictory. Well, I want us to start looking at this idea of fearing God and loving God in a unique way, in a new way, hopefully today, that we can find a way to live. Because that's what Kabbalah is about. How do we live? Like we mentioned in the beginning, if everywhere we go, we take our soul with us, and in our soul is the infinite power of the Creator, then all we need to do is learn how to express it, how to use it, the technology to make it work, and then our lives will change like that. Like light takes away darkness. And that's the benefit that we get here is to understand, not to throw things out, just to adjust our way of thinking, adjust the way we look at it. So how many of you still have, or let's put it this way, let's look outside. How many of you ever seen an adult act like a child? Throw a tantrum, be upset, right? Act like a little kid, whatever it is, right? No, don't touch my toys, right? No, I got to get that, run away, throw a tantrum, fall on the floor. Exactly. So I had a woman made it very clear to me. She was working for a dentist, right? Dentist. He went through dental school, very mature, had a family, owns a business, runs a business, etc. And she said one time she happened to notice something didn't go his way, and he threw a tantrum like a 10-year-old. That's how she described it to me. So I explained to her what I'm about to explain to you. Which comes first, the physical laws or the spiritual laws? Spiritual laws, right? The invisible manifests through the physical. So if there's a physical law that's known as energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed, then what happens spiritually? Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. So you and I tend to think that since it's been a while since we've been 10 years old, whatever happened when we were 10 is long gone, and now I'm a mature being. Exactly. Until what? Until something doesn't go my way. And then what happens? Then my 10-year-old starts to wake up and start to have the tantrum, be upset, get jealous, get fearful, be selfish, whatever it might be. Because that 10-year-old, as in the case of this dentist, it didn't disappear. And this dentist, as mostly you and I, didn't make an effort, because we don't realize that what happened back then still affects us now. But it does. It does. What we didn't change then, what we accepted then, is still bothering us now. I often share the story about me and my 12-year-old. Meaning me as a 12-year-old, and the resentment I had to God. I think I shared it even recently, right? I had a resentment to God because when my grandmother died, the rabbi that came to visit basically inferred in my 12-year-old brain, God took my grandmother. So that stayed with me. Even though I was many years in spirituality and I've been 30 years in the Kabbalah Center as a teacher, but I still realized through an experience I had that my 12-year-old was still holding on to that. So I had to transform it. Because what you don't transform doesn't go away. How many of you know people who had an injury when they were 10, 11, 12, something? It's still bothering them. Okay, physical and spiritual. If a person can be injured, break their leg and have a limp from 10 years old till they're 60, then why can't they have an experience, a traumatic experience at 10 that's still bothering them at 50, 60, or 70? What's the difference? It's the same thing. That's what you and I are here to learn. So think about it. When you're a kid, when you're a child, or if you've had children, how many of you stand by and heaven forbid you watch your child walking towards the street, right? A 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and they're about to step off the curve on a busy street and you just sit there watching. Nobody does that. What do? You inject the wrath of God in that child. You scream and yell, "Don't go on the street!" And what happens to the child? Right? Fear of a parent, fear of punishment, fear of reward. True or not true? See, this time I gave you an option. Right? Of course. And then what? You can't explain to a 2-year-old all the time, but we try to explain what goes on, etc. So now, the 2, 3, 4-year-old, and we tell them all things. Don't touch the electricity, right? Don't step off the curb. Don't whatever. Don't, watch out for the balcony, whatever it might be. Don't play with knives. Don't play with whatever. And we're teaching children, in essence, by fear. In a simple way, fear of reward and punishment. Now, you and I grow up to be teenagers, maybe in our 20s. It depends on who we are. And then you start to understand, why did your parents tell you don't step off the curb on a busy street? Don't play with the electricity. Don't play with fire, etc. Now what happens? Ideally, we grow up to understand the reasoning behind it. How many of you as adults right now would willingly step off a third-floor balcony? Okay. Is it the wrath or the fear of your parents that you wouldn't do that? Oh, my mom would be really upset if I stepped off a third-floor balcony. Some of us, our parents aren't even around. Why are we still scared of them? Right? So now we say to ourselves, no, I'm an adult. I understand the law of gravity. And I know what pain is. So I don't want to step off a third-floor balcony because I like feeling painless. I like having a good time. I like enjoying myself. So what happens? The not playing with electricity, not fooling around with knives, etc., becomes, from fear, it becomes a desire. I want to have a great life. I want to have good things in my life. I want to stay away from bad things. So we've grown up and we've matured. We've changed our consciousness about what our parents taught us. Yes or yes? New people just got confused. Yes or no, now it's yes or yes. Right? The new people watching going, what is this? So then what happened? What happened is, in essence, and please understand it in this frame, religion, as practiced on its literal level, is still in a childlike state. Fear the wrath of God. Be fearful of God. Because if you do X, then this is going to happen. If you do this, then this is going to happen. Reward and punishment. But you and I are here in the Kabbalah Center. We're growing up into mature spiritual adults. We're coming to understand the laws of the universe. So whether a child was taught out of fear, don't put your finger in an electric socket, or you and I as adults understand what electricity is and what could happen to put our finger in the socket, is it not still the same law? Yes or yes? Yes or yes? Yes. Thank you. They need to hear you out there. Right? It's the same law. We still don't play with electricity. Don't put your finger in the socket. But one is out of fear, the other is out of understanding. There's a difference. So sadly, to the extent that you and I were infused with the fear of God, and unfortunately there are still people out there talking about the wrath of God, if you don't do what they say. Well, how many theys are there? You go to any particular place and you hear some person out there say, if you don't listen to me, the way I tell you God operates, then God is going to punish you. If God's going to punish me, let God tell me. Who are you to tell me? Let's think of it that way. Because how many times can you hear different religious type people tell you things to do or not to do, and one says you could do this, and the other says, no, you can't do that. And both of them threatening the wrath of God. No wonder people are confused. And no wonder people give up on God, and give up on religion, and give up on spirituality even. Because, if it has to do with God and they don't believe God because God's threatening all this stuff, I'll just go out, I'll be a good person. And we'll just live what we think is a good life. But you and I are here in the Kabbalah Center to understand, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. We're coming to understand because we're driven by a desire for a good life. How many of you want a bad life? Exactly. Right? We all want a good life. And in order to do that, even on a simple physical level, what do you do most days? From 9 to 5. Hint. You go to work. Why do you go to work? Because somebody's threatening you? Because your parents are going to punish you or whatever? No, you go to work because work is the means by which you earn a living, so you can pay your bills, you can buy nice things, you can give people gifts, etc., etc. Right? So we're driven by our desires. So then it's the same thing. We have to be driven by our desire for a life of peace and harmony to, one, come to understand what are the laws of the universe, and then two, put them to use. But it's about shifting our consciousness. It's about changing the way we look at things. We've got to grow up from religion to spirituality. And I'm not being disrespectful to religion, because religion generally is spirituality without the meaning behind it. Like your parents. Yes, it's still good not to step off a curb and walk in the middle of a busy street, right? That's still a smart thing. But now we no longer do it out of fear. We do it because we understand I don't want to get hit by a car, right? Although there are some people still doing that. You see these people, right? They put on the blindfold and now they walk across the street or they drive the car. You ever seen these people? Yeah, they could magicians or illusionists. They put a blindfold on, they get in a car, they have a passenger with them, and now they're driving 80 miles an hour down a road. Exactly. I'd be scared too. Except we know there's a trick to it. Right? We understand that. But you and I are here to understand what is the trick of the universe in that way. What are we here to see past the illusion of our five senses? We're here to gain the understanding of the universal wisdom. Because just like gravity, electricity, etc., if they work for every human being from the physical, scientific level, then there have to be similar things in a spiritual level. And that's all Kabbalah is about. That's why I look around the room, watch the people. Go on Facebook and see who's watching us. All religions, all races, all cultures, all backgrounds. Because every human being has a soul. And in the soul is the light of the Creator. And so the universal laws that we call Kabbalah will work for everybody. Everybody. It's just a question now of making use of it. And so that's what we're here now to start transforming. We don't want to be fearful anymore about God. The opposite. If we've come to understand Kabbalistically that what we'll call God is actually the light force. The Creator is only love and kindness and goodness and generosity and tolerance and all those good things, and it's constantly shining on us, its goodness, then why is it people don't have good all the time? If it's really up to God, then why isn't there already peace on earth? Oh, yeah, because we learn here free will. We've been given free will. So free will means the Creator can't force us. The laws are the laws, right? How many of you don't have to raise your hands, but how many of you ever rebelled against something your parents said? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then the same thing. So if God is that wrathful, vengeful person, or whatever you want to call it, then of course we're going to rebel. People have been doing it for thousands of years. Thou shalt not steal, people stealing. Thou shalt not murder, people are still murdering. How are we going to change it? You and I are here because we want to see the end of all the chaos in the world. We want to see unity and oneness among people. But it's going to mean that shift of consciousness. We've got to start overcoming the old idea, the spiritually childlike idea to fear God. And we need to transform it into love. But now we have to understand what love is. So the Kabbalists teach us, like attracts like. Opposites repel, no matter what you see. Because we'll tend to say, oh no, Chaim, you're wrong. And remember, I've been teaching this almost 31 years now, so don't think you can tell me anything I haven't heard before. Or maybe I should challenge you to try that. Right? But how many times do we hear from people, oh no, I know this couple, and they're exactly opposite. Right? This one's a this, and this one's the opposite of the this. Right? This one's this and that. So they're opposites. But look at them, they look like they're together, they look so in love. Well, once you learn Kabbalah, you can see through the illusion that they're opposites. And you can see that they're the same. But the external looks different. Simple example. Most people think ego is what? You walk in and you say, I'm better than you, I'm the best, I'm great, I'm wonderful. That's ego. But you know what ego can also look like? Exactly the opposite. Somebody who walks around and says, oh no, I'm nothing really. Don't pay much attention to me. Meanwhile, they're doing like this. Don't pay much attention to me. No, I'm really not so good. Right? It's still ego, but it looks exactly the opposite. So when we say opposites attract, it's not true. You just have to dig in deeper and see what the similarity is. Because the law is cause and effect. Like attracts like. So then two things that are of similar form will be close to each other. Two things that are of different form will be opposite. And that's why. Why can we look around the world and we can see all kinds of different people, and yet we can still want in our heart and soul peace and harmony? If like attracts like, then maybe we all have to be black or white or yellow or brown, or Jewish or Christian or Muslim or Buddhist. Maybe. And then maybe we'll have peace and harmony. Well, let's stop and be honest about that. Could that ever happen? Could it really ever happen? No, it's never going to happen. Because we're not meant to be. We were created to be unique and different externally. But what we're learning here is internally we're all the same. We all carry the same soul. We carry the same light of the Creator. It may manifest a little differently in the colors of our skin, in the religions that we grew up in our talents and abilities, etc. But it's still of the essence of the light of the Creator. And so that root essence, like we affirm every Sunday, love, kindness, and compassion, isn't that common to every human being? At least potentially. If everybody has the light of God in them, then that's our potential. But we have to learn to live it. So the Kabbalists teach us that the only purpose to be in this world, only purpose, is to become similar to God. To create a similarity of form. So if we now come through Kabbalah to understand God, in its essence, is what we call the light, because we can relate to light, then what does the light do once you turn it on? It just gives. It just shines. It illuminates. So then our job is just to illuminate. Take the light of our soul and share it. But if we want more blessing than we have now, because we're awakening a greater desire for what the Creator gave us, eternal bliss, happiness, joy, prosperity, peace, all the good things, then our work is to become more and more similar to the light of the Creator. Which means then in the places that we are not, in the places that we still hold fear, ego, greed, guilt, shame, animosity, resentment, jealousy, we have to transform our nature. We don't have to transform the light. The light is the light. We don't have to change God. God is God. The laws of the universe are the laws of the universe. You can't change those. The issue is how we operate with them. So then in the places where we have blockages, that's where, and that's why they call it the extra mile, right? You've got to stretch yourself to share. Or we teach in the classes, you've got to share uncomfortably if you want to transform your nature. It's got to be outside your comfort zone. So you've got to give forgiveness where you didn't want to. You've got to have humility where your ego is being awakened. You've got to have gratitude and happiness for other people's good when your jealousy is being awakened. You've got to have generosity and charitableness where your greed is being awakened. Reminds me of a story. We all know, I hope we all know, or just you can get the book on prosperity to find out about it, but the idea of tithing. Tithing is a very simple thing. Give 10% of whatever comes to your pocket. You get $1,000, you give $100. You get $1 million, you give $100,000. It's a simple law. We understand the reasoning behind it, etc., but that's not the point. The point is the example. So I had a couple that were being assessed with a $150,000 fine on their property. They knew it was unjust, it wasn't right, whatever it was, but it's $150,000. They didn't have that kind of money. So what did they do? They came to an uncomfortable act of sharing. They gave tithing instead of saving the money for this fine. $10,000. Pretty powerful. I was really impressed, I must tell you. Within 2 weeks, the city reassessed what the fine was, and it was about $3,600. From $150,000 to $3,600. Because they were willing to go outside their comfort zone and share what they knew were, and had come to understand the laws of the universe. You can fool me, you can fool yourself, but you can't fool the universe. The laws are the laws. You can say to yourself, yes, put on a smile. Hi, yes, you're so great and wonderful. But inside still feeling the resentment and the hurt, cause and effect. Whatever you hold, whatever you're really emanating, that's going to come back. So you can't just play on the outside. It's got to come from within. And that's why, what's the first line of our affirmation? First 3 words. Consciousness is everything. Because that's what counts. I used the example in the classes this week. You know, our words, thoughts, and actions are basically vessels. Like a cup. All right? So they carry, like our soul is a vessel. It's carrying the light of the Creator. So imagine now I have this diamond-encrusted, solid gold goblet. And I want to offer a drink to you in this gold, diamond-encrusted goblet. You're pretty impressed, no? First you're impressed I have one, right? Then you're impressed that I took it out of the cabinet to share it with you, right? But now imagine I put sour milk in that gold, diamond-encrusted goblet. Are you now happy to drink from that gold goblet? No. Not really. So is it about the vessel or is it about the consciousness, the internal? And that's it. Our words, thoughts, and action is what comes back to us. And this is why we can often see what looks like contradiction. Good things happen to bad things happen to good people, etc. Those can be, because not every time we do what people might see as a good action is our good intent there. Or the opposite. How many of you as parents ever had to punish your children? But do you hate them in that moment you punish them? No, you're doing it for their good. So the vessel looks like, go to your room, or you can't have this, or can't go there. But what's inside that vessel? Love, care, kindness. That's what they receive. It's not just the vessel, it's what's on the inside. So sometimes it can look like somebody does a bad action, but it's actually of love and good intent, and that's what will come back. And sometimes people can do what looks like a good action, and it's of bad intent. It's of selfish intent, and that's what will come back. So we're here then to learn, if we really want to love God, and we want the love of God, love in Kabbalistic terms is unity. It's oneness. So then the more we create ourselves to be of similar form with God, sharing, kindness, generosity, forgiveness, tolerance, then the closer we are to God. And therefore, the more of that blessing we get. More of our perfection, our perfect. What do we say? I am, we are, pure and perfect beings of light. So there's a perfection waiting for us to reveal it. So then the more we act like God, the more we get there. That's up to us. It's not up to the Creator. So then what are we talking about here? And I know I got a number of comments on Facebook when I said, is it fear of God or love of God? But now we can find a way, first of all, just to transform it. We can transform fear to love, just like with our parents. Yes, I was in fear of being punished for walking in the middle of the street or drawing with my crayon all over the wall. In fact, I did that once. Should I tell you that story? No? Okay. So my parents had, and unfortunately for them, it was a wood-paneled bathroom. Right? It was wood, but back in those days, it was like real wood. So I took one of my father's grease markers, if you know, he had a pharmacy, right? Like a black grease pencil, and I started drawing all over the wood. They couldn't even paint over it. So even just before we sold the house in 1977, guess what was still on the walls in the bathroom? Yes. Fortunately, it had been a number of years, so guess what was no longer on my tushy? Right? The pain had gone away. The memory was there, but the pain had gone away. Right? But they did it to teach me. You understand? So, of course, as I grew up, I understood. So I transformed the fear to love through understanding. So the first step is transforming our fear to love by being objective now. What's the laws of the universe? What are the way things operate? And drive ourselves, motivate ourselves by the desire for goodness. The second part, to go yet to a higher level. And that's where you and I want to go, and what Kabbalah will teach us, offers us, but we have to do the work. The higher level is one step more. Even the concept of fearing God is not fear. That's what it looks like literally. But in Kabbalistic terms, the word yirah, which they translate as fear of God, actually means to see. It comes from the root to see. So when you can see the light of the Creator in you, and you can see the light of the Creator in other people, then we can start to achieve human dignity. Just simple, fundamental human dignity. There's no person on earth who's not human and doesn't have human experiences that we all have in one level or another. So we may not yet believe or feel we're on the level of love your neighbor as yourself, but we can certainly act with human dignity, just basic kindness and courtesy to other people. And that will come to us the more we can see that the light of the Creator is infinite, the light of the Creator is everywhere, and it's in everybody. Because then we can act with human dignity. Even if I don't want to do what you ask me to do, but I can say no with human dignity. Even if somebody comes at me because in their own mind they're upset and they're bothered about something that happened at work, and they happen to be a little short-tempered in that moment, and they express that short-temperedness in my environment, in front of me. My job is to stop and say, wait a second, what do I want? Do I want my anger to come back to me? Or I can stop and say, you know what? This person's going through a human experience that I've gone through before. Let me behave with human dignity. Even if it's to stop and say, hey, what's going on with you? You're usually not angry like this. If I did something to offend you, I'm sorry. Human dignity. If we can spread more and more human dignity, think how the world will change. Because why is it that violent people do violent things? Because they feel that people are stepping on them, that they're not respecting them. So human dignity is a very simple thing that starts with yirah, to see. So then it's not even just changing fear to love. It's being able to see past our illusion, to see the light of the Creator in us and in everybody else. And that's why they do say the ultimate is love your neighbor as yourself. So the more I can look in the mirror and I can see the light of the Creator in me, then the easier it will be for me to see the light in you. And once I can see the light in you and I relate it to the light in me, then I know that every once in a while, yes, I'm not always peaceful and serene. I'm not always channeling the light. Just ask my kids. Not always. A lot better than I was 30 years ago, but not always. So the same way I would want human dignity and a little tolerance and even feedback. Tell me, because if I'm upset, I'm not aware. Stop me and say, Chaim, be aware of how you're behaving. Thank you. That's human dignity. So it's okay not to say yes to everything. It's okay not to be friends with everybody, as long as we're acting with human dignity. Because once we're acting with human dignity, then we will see the light of the Creator everywhere. Think, there's a very nice story in the Bible. Moses, spiritual leader of basically all generations. He was directing the Israelites out of bondage of Egypt into the promised land of Israel. Well, along the way, there was a guy named Korach who decided to rebel against Moses. And if you get into the Kabbalistic meaning, it was a little more than just simple rebellion. He thought he could bring the end of pain, suffering, and death today. Moses, who saw a bigger picture, said, no, it's not going to work. Korach said, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. So what did Moses do? Human dignity. He didn't just say, Korach, you're an idiot. You're not listening to what I'm telling you. God speaks to me, not to you. He said, no. It says, if you read literally, it says, and Moses fell on his face. So in the literal sense, it looks like Moses was angry at Korach. But you read the Kabbalistic understanding. And it says, no, Moses thought, you know what? Maybe I don't see the whole picture. Maybe Korach is seeing something that I can't see. So when it says he fell on his face, he was actually like praying for, if you will, or empowering Korach, just in case Korach was right and Moses didn't see it. Human dignity. Human dignity. I had a student who just wrote me last week, after last week's Spiritual Sunday. He says the same kind of thing. He says, you know, he found himself, for whatever reason, surrounded by a group of homeless people. And I guess he had gone into their territory, whatever it was, and he says all of a sudden, about 8 or 9 of them picking up skateboards and like coming to threaten him. He remembered something he had heard on Sunday, and he says he just started to shine the light on them. He just started to look inside their soul to see the light inside of them, and he just started to, what we would today call human dignity. He just looked at them beyond their homelessness and their status, and he saw the light of the Creator. And he says all of a sudden they just like calmed down. He had a nice conversation with them, and then he went away and they went away peacefully. So things can change like this, like light changes darkness. But it's coming down to, are we willing to change our fear to love? And are we willing to see past our illusion of what people may look like or how they're acting in the moment to see the light of the Creator inside them? Because today it's up to us, you and I, whether you realize it or not, because we have the great merit, and those of you watching also, we have the great merit to be here in the Kabbalah Center that's teaching the universal laws of Kabbalah, that every human being on earth will know how to achieve their 100%. Everyone, by acting in their 100%. So we really are the spiritual leaders of the world. All of us. Not one of us, all of us. We're supporting each other and achieving it. What's the difference between a thread that you sew with and a rope? how many work together? If you put together 1,000 pieces of thread, you have a rope. If we're in it by ourselves, then we're like the thread, easy to break. If we're united, and that's why I keep encouraging you, and the whole center has been about how do we get more people on board with this. Share the videos. Tell people about Kabbalah. Let them go to Kabbalah.com. Let them watch these videos. Just put it out there for others to see, because it's to our benefit. Because if we all unite ourselves, yes, we're all one-on-one. It's cause and effect to me. But when I unite myself with all of you and all the people who are watching and all the people in around the centers, then I benefit from that rope quantum energy. So it's to our advantage to unite ourselves together. So we are the spiritual leaders. We are the ones who can inspire other people to do the same. And as you and I, as these spiritual leaders today, will decide, one, we want to act with human dignity by seeing the light inside us, by seeing the light inside other people, by seeing the Creator's light all around us, by acting as if we see Yirah, we see that light in us, then you and I will be able to see in our time heaven on earth, goodwill and love between all people. God bless. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I see you. Okay. All right, so now is the time just to, it's interesting. I shared with them a little bit. We know what's going on, or we saw what's going on in North Korea. Everyone knows the latest. So some of you were here about 4 months ago when I showed a picture, because we had about 8 or 10 students who took their own time and effort. They went to South Korea, as close as they could get to the border of North Korea, and they handed out Zohars. So some of them were like this. To the Korean soldiers, they gave a pocket Zohar like this. In some of the places, whether it's police stations or the army stations or hospitals or orphanages or whatever, then they gave what they call the sacred Zohar, which you can see out in the bookstore. It's a nice, thick black book that has all the entire energy of the Zohar itself, all 23 volumes of the Aramaic. And 2 of the students, one got into the Olympic Village and put a sacred Zohar there. One got into the room where they were about to negotiate between the North and South Koreans and put a sacred Zohar there. A couple weeks after that, all of a sudden the North Korean dictator decided he was willing to negotiate, and now we see what's been happening because of that. So the Zohar is the power of the light. That's all we have to know. Don't worry about, you don't understand it, it's written in Aramaic, etc., etc. Our soul feeds on and is nourished by the energy that channels out of the Aramaic words, as we're going to do our meditation a little later. Right? But just to understand the power of this. So we just need your help. We need more people to help us spread the Zohar. In this coming week, we have a group of about 100 volunteers, students from around the world, who are gathering in St. Louis. And they're going to be spreading the Zohar in St. Louis. Police stations, fire stations, hospitals, clinics, wherever they can find, to bring the light of the Zohar to make St. Louis shine brighter to all of America and ultimately to all of the world. But obviously it takes support. We can't do it ourselves. We need your help and we need your help. So that's why we always take these few moments to bless the offering, because your offering is what allows us to do this. Supports all the projects of the center, supports the spread of the Zohar. And as like we've just said, the effort that we make is the effort the universe shines back on us. It is one-to-one. Don't look for the immediate results, because sometimes things take a process to happen. I mean, I would love it. My daughter, every once in a while, for her friend's birthday, she bakes cupcakes or little cakes. So, of course, I'm the one she takes to the market to buy this stuff. But then there's a process. I mean, it doesn't just happen like this. She got to blend it and mix it and bake it and the whole thing. So the same thing spiritually. We don't always see the immediate results. But long term, it will always show up and it will come back to us. So if you'll hold your gift, your offerings in support of the Zohar Project and the Kabbalah Center and even Spiritual Sunday, please hold it in your hand. We'll take a moment to bless it. Those of you who are watching on Facebook, you can go to the Facebook page. The website to give and make your donation is also there. But join us in the meditation. So we just want to be thankful Just gratitude for all that the Creator's given us. Gratitude for the wisdom that we learn here in the center. To be able to activate more and more of our pure and perfect beingness. To awaken and to share more of the light that the Creator has put inside our souls. That we can transform the planet from darkness to light, creating greater miracles, like the one between North and South Korea, that's saving thousands, maybe millions of lives. We're empowering these gifts to bring the light of the Creator through the Zohar out to the world, that in our generation we see the end of all the darkness, all the chaos, because the light of the Creator will be revealed all throughout the world. And love will guide the hearts and souls of every human being. We send it out with our love, our light, and our blessings. And together we say, Amen. Okay, let's do our meditation. What you see in front of you, as it says, is the power of human dignity. Right? It's our ability of seeing the light in everybody. And once you see the light, of course you want to operate on the light. Because the reason we get upset at people, we don't see the light in them. We're just seeing the external. Right? And how many times have we heard the saying, you don't judge a book by its cover. So then same thing. Right? We get upset, we get bothered, we get hurt in one way or another because we're judging or observing only the external. Now we're learning today to see inside that. If we can see the internal, then we can act with human dignity. And if we do that, then like Tim who wrote us, he can draw the human dignity out of everybody else. Okay, so that's what we want to meditate on. This is one of the 72 names of God, for those of you who are new to it. They're, yes, Hebrew letters or Aramaic letters, but they shine the light of the Creator. They are just conduits to the upper world. Let it just be that simple. Particles of the spiritual light of God. So as you look at it, our eyes are the windows to the soul, and therefore the energy is awakening a higher level of human dignity. Help us go outside our comfort zone to share human dignity and care for others. And so just look at it. The letters from right to left, Dalid Mem Bet. So you'll hear in the meditation, Dalid Mem Bet. But just let the energy flow into your brain, through your eyes. Let it awaken in your soul. Take a good look at the shapes. And now if you'll close your eyes and join with me, sitting comfortably in your seat, feet flat on the floor, hands on the lap. Just begin taking a few deep breaths. Breathe in through the nose. Hold the breath for a moment. Exhale through the mouth. Allow the oxygen in the air to circulate through you. In through the nose. Hold it for a moment. Exhale through the mouth. As you're allowing the oxygen to circulate, know in your consciousness that the oxygen also carries the light of the Creator. So allowing yourself to relax, a greater awakening of the light. Let it infuse from head to toe. Open yourself up just to be a conduit, a pure channel of the light of the Creator that's all around us and within us. Envisioning the energy forces, Dalid Mem Bet. This combination, awakening in our heart and soul the power of human dignity, Daled Mem Bet. To see through all the illusion, to see beyond our five senses, to be able to see in ourselves and in every human being the light of the Creator. And now, with our free will and our elevated consciousness, extending human dignity to every person on earth, seeing that light shining from you to all your family and friends. Let's see it together, supporting each other to see the light in all the people and the people that we have issues with. Let's see the light that the Creator put in them also. That we can awaken in them also human dignity, oneness, the love of the Creator, and the love of the light inside each and every other person around them. And then shining it out to every human being on earth. Envisioning the world as one, and the light so bright that all we can see is light. Perfect peace, harmony, oneness. Every human being looking out for the good of another. Committing ourselves right now to behave with greater human dignity. To constantly remind ourselves of the light of the Creator in us and everybody else. We're all in it together. Let's hold this vision of peace and harmony together, engraving it in our heart and our soul and our mind's eye. Taking one more deep breath, anchoring it in our consciousness, and slowly exhale and opening your eyes.